Today I'm going to be talking to you about respiration. First, we'll start with the sequence of airflow. When you inhale, it is either inhaled through your nose or your oral cavity. Then it works its way into your nasal cavity, through the nasal pharynx, and past the glottis, which you can see right here. It then flows down through your trachea, and then into the bronchi, and then it is then flowed into either lung. After that, it is then flowed to the smaller bronchi, then to the bronchioles, then to the terminal bronchioles, then to the respiratory bronchioles, and eventually it works its way down here to the alveolar ducts and the alveoli, as you can see right here. Next, we're going to talk about the respiratory cycle. There are two phases: inspiration and expiration. Inspiration is active contraction of the respiratory muscles, which is the diaphragm and the intercostal. Expiration phase is the elastic recoil of muscles as they snap back into resting length. And I'll show you a picture of that right now. You can see here on the left side the inspiration phase as you intake a breath. Your intercostals, they rise and expand as your sternum moves forward and up, and the diaphragm flattens, expanding space for the lungs. And then here on the other side is expiration. As you expel the breath, your ribs and your sternum return to their original places, and the diaphragm relaxes to its original position. Now we're going to talk about lung volumes. Tidal volume, the volume of gas expired or inspired each cycle. Inspiratory reserve volume, maximum amount of gas from the end tidal inspiratory volume. Expiratory reserve volume is the maximum amount of gas expired from the end tidal expiratory level. And then residual volume, the volume of gas left in the lungs after maximal expiration. Now let's talk a little bit about lung capacities. Total lung capacity, as you can see right here, which is abbreviated as TLC, is the amount of gas in the lungs after max inspiration. TLC, or total lung capacity, is equal to tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume plus expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. Now let's move on to here. Vital capacity. That is the max amount expired after max inspiration. Vital capacity is equal to tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume plus expiratory reserve volume. And then finally, down here, functional residual capacity is the amount of gas left in the lungs at resting expiratory level. Functional residual capacity is equal to the expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. And as you can see here is your total lung capacity, which is then comprised of all of these other volumes of gas or air that you breathe to equal total lung capacity. Now let's talk about the cost of breathing. At rest, not much more than 1% of metabolism is devoted to breathing. During exercise, oxygen cost of breathing rises disproportionately. Pollution has a large effect on our exercise and the way we breathe in. Oftentimes, exposure to smog can have negative effects on performance, just like smoking substantially reduces airway conductance and may lead to 5 to 10% decrease in total lung air supply. Could then lead to easier fatigue due to decreased lung air supply as well. Now let's talk about the gas transport. There's three processes: diffusion of oxygen across the walls of the alveolus and the capillary, transport of oxygen in the blood to the capillary bed of active muscles, and diffusion of oxygen across the capillary wall to activate muscle fibers.